If shoulder stiffness, heel pain, and work finding trouble showed up around the same time, this is not coincidence. And it's not just aging. It's this one biological transition playing out in different tissues. I'm Dr. CY, a board-certified physician scientist in longevity medicine at Stanford Medicine. My mission is to share evidence-based, accessible, and free resources for individuals navigating the natural aging process who want to proactively optimize their lifestyle, nutrition, and supplementation to support long-term health and longevity. And today, I want to walk you through a pattern I see over and over in midlife patients. High-functioning women who suddenly develop frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, and a subtle but distressing cognitive fog. Medicine often treats these as unrelated problems, but biologically, there are often three readouts of the same underlying shifts. In conventional care, each symptom goes to a different silo. Physical therapy for the shoulder, orthotics or injections for the heel, and get more sleep for the brain fog. But perimenopause and menopause are not organ-specific events. They're systemic signaling transitions, and estrogen receptors are expressed in connective tissue, muscle, brain, and vasculature. When estrogen signaling declines, multiple tissues change in parallel, just at different speeds. Estrogen plays a regulatory role in connective tissue biology. It influences collagen turnover, fibril organization, proteoglycans that bind water, and how well fascial layers slide over each other. When estrogen receptor signaling declines, collagen remodeling slows, the extracellular matrix holds less water, and sliding planes lose lubrication. The result is tissue that is less compliant, more brittle, and more inflammation prone. Frozen shoulder adhesive capsulitis is essentially a shoulder capsule that becomes inflamed, thickened, and adherent. External rotation is usually the first motion lost. Epidemiologically, midlife women are disproportionately affected. Observational data show lower rates of frozen shoulder among women using menopausal hormone therapy, suggesting a hormonal contribution, though association is not causation. The key point is this: the tissue isn't just tight, it's biologically less adaptable. The plantar fascia and Achilles tendon are high-load collagen structures. If collagen synthesis can't keep up with daily mechanical stress, microinjury accumulates. That's what patients describe morning first step pain, stiffness after rest, flares with activity that used to be fine. Estrogen is also a neuroenergetic hormone. In the brain, it supports glucose transporter expression, astrocyte neuron metabolic coupling, and mitochondrial ATP production. During the menopausal transition, imaging studies show region-specific declines in cerebral glucose metabolism, especially in networks involved in executive function. This aligns with what patients report: slower processing, reduced verbal fluency, word-finding difficulty, and mental fatigue that sleep alone doesn't fix. And this is not early dementia. It's metabolic inefficiency under cognitive load. In this framework, vasomotor symptoms can be understood not just as thermostat dysfunction, but as brain fuel stress triggering compensatory autonomic responses. That's why sleep, cognition, and temperature regulation often fluctuate together. Menopausal hormone therapy remains first-line treatment for vasomotor symptoms and may confer secondary benefits to connective tissue and brain energetics. This decision is individualized based on age, timing since final menstrual period, symptom burden, and personal risk profile. Route and formulation matter, and this is a clinician-guided conversation, not a one-size-fits-all prescription. Creatine buffers cellular energy through a phosphocreatine system. In states of brain glucose stress, it can help stabilize ATP availability. So what does the evidence actually show? Overall, creatine appears to offer modest cognitive benefits in the general population. However, the signal becomes stronger in certain groups, particularly in women, and especially during periods of physiologic stress, such as sleep deprivation, aging, or high cognitive demand. Importantly, creatine is also generally well tolerated when used appropriately. And clinically, there are a few important notes. If someone has significant kidney disease, creatine should not be started without clinician guidance. And one nuance physicians often mention is that creatine can cause a mild rise in serum creatine, but this does not necessarily reflect true kidney injury. It's often a laboratory effect rather than actual renal damage. Fibroblasts, the cells responsible for building and remodeling connective tissue, respond to mechanical loading only if the right substrate is available. In other words, rehab exercises provide the signal, but you still need the raw materials to build new collagen. So this is the protocol I typically use. About 30 to 60 minutes before rehab or tendon loading work, I recommend 10 to 15 grams of collagen or gelatin paired with 50 to 100 milligrams of vitamin C. Done 4 to 5 days per week, consistently for 8 to 12 weeks. And the key point is this: this approach supports collagen synthesis in response to mechanical load, not as a standalone supplement strategy. This supplement isn't the treatment itself. The combination of targeted loading plus proper substrate is what drives the tissue remodeling. Let's set realistic expectations because this is a gradual biologic process. Connective tissue remodeling and neurocognitive recovery don't happen overnight, but there's a predictable timeline of improvement when the fundamentals are done consistently. In weeks 1 or 2, many people notice better sleep continuity, a shorter morning cognitive startup time, and although pain may still fluctuate, it often recovers faster after activity. This early phase is less about full resolution and more about stabilization. By weeks 3 or 4, you may start to see more functional changes, improved shoulder range of motion, less sharp heel pain with the first step of the day, and fewer word-finding lapses or moments of mental fog. These are subtle but meaningful signals that the system is adapting. And by weeks 8 to 12, this is where deeper structural change begins. Meaningful tendon remodeling, improved function and confidence with movement, and if sleep remains stable, some individuals may be able to gradually taper sleep aids under appropriate guidance. The key message is that this is not about quick fixes, but it's about consistent inputs that allow the body and brain to rebuild over time. Frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, and brain fog are not isolated midlife problems. They're parallel expressions of a shared metabolic hormonal transition. When we support connective tissue remodeling, stabilize cellular energy, protect sleep architecture, and when appropriate, restore estrogen signaling, we treat the system, not just the symptom list.
Here we have some questions. Why do frozen shoulder, plantar fasciitis, and brain fog show up together in midlife?
Because the menopausal transition is systemic, declining estrogen signaling can simultaneously reduce connective tissue hydration and remodeling capacity. Tendons, fascia, capsule get stiffer and more irritable, and shift brain energy metabolism, where less efficient glucose utilization leads to slower processing, word-finding issues, and mental fatigue.
Is this just wear and tear or getting older?
Not purely. Mechanical load matters, but the tissue environment changes in midlife. Hydration, collagen turnover, inflammatory tone, and recovery capacity can all shift. That's why symptoms can cluster and appear out of proportion to activity changes.
How do I know if my shoulder pain is likely frozen shoulder versus rotator cuff irritation?
Great question. Frozen shoulder is adhesive capsulitis, which classically includes progressive stiffness with true loss of range of motion, especially external rotation, pain that can be worse at night, and difficulty with behind the back and overhead movements.
How do I know if my heel pain is plantar fasciitis or something else?
Plantar fasciitis often presents as sharp heel pain with first steps in the morning, improvement after a few minutes of walking, and tenderness near the medial calcaneal tubercle. Consider evaluation if you have numbness or tingling, pain that's constant at rest, swelling or redness, fever, sudden pop, or inability to bear weight.
What cognitive symptoms fit the menopausal brain fog pattern?
Common reports include word-finding difficulty like the tip of the tongue movements, slowed verbal fluency or processing speed, reduced multitasking tolerance, and attention drift, especially with poor sleep or hot flashes.
Does menopausal hormone therapy treat frozen shoulder or plantar fasciitis?
Great question. MHT is first line for vasomotor symptoms in appropriate candidates and may plausibly support connective tissue and brain energy, but evidence for musculoskeletal benefit is largely observational, not definitive causation. It's best framed as a system-level lever that may help some symptoms, not a guaranteed cure for shoulder and heel pain.
Who's a reasonable candidate to discuss MHT with a clinician?
Typically those with moderate to severe vasomotor symptoms, sleep disruption, or quality of life impact, especially when within the window soon after menopause onset. The decision depends on personal risks. For example, thromboembolism history, breast cancer risk factors, migraine patterns, etc., and formulation or route.
Why creatine in this protocol? What's the logic?
Creatine supports cellular energy buffering via phosphocreatine system. In a period where some people experience brain energy strain, like sleep disruption plus metabolic transition, creatine is used as a low-friction support for ATP availability that may translate into small improvements in cognition, mood, or mental stamina in some individuals.
Is creatine safe? What are the main cautions?
For most healthy adults, it's well tolerated at 3 to 5 grams per day. Key cautions. Discuss with a clinician if you have kidney disease or take nephroactive meds. Creatine can raise serum creatine without true kidney injury, so it can confuse the labs.
What is collagen loading? And why pair it with mechanical loading?
The idea is collagen peptides or gelatin plus vitamin C provide amino acid substrate and cofactors right before loading sessions so fibroblasts have building blocks available when the tissue receives the stimulus to remodel.
If I do collagen but do not do rehab or loading, will it still work?
Much less. Tendons and fascia adapt primarily to mechanical stimulus. Collagen is a material strategy. Loading is the signal. You want both. If this resonated with you, or if you'd like a printable 4-week starter protocol, just leave a comment below. Thank you all for being here and for joining this journey of taking the right steps to age with strength, clarity, and long-term health together.